Hi, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Thanks so much for joining us on UpNorthLive Unscripted at 6:30. I am Maya Engel, and let's bring in our meteorologist, Joe Charlevoix, right away, because, Joe, it was a very interesting weather day. Some areas saw a severe thunderstorm warning, others still had some heat advisories. So what's going on with the rest of the evening?
Yeah, doesn't that sound like summer? We got, like you said, heat and thunderstorms and yeah, a lot going on. Thankfully, though, yesterday at this time, we weren't quite sure how this is all going to evolve today. We thought that there could be maybe a little more widespread severe weather, but thankfully that did not materialize. And while we did have a few trees knocked down in Wexford County around Cadillac, the storms have pretty much behaved themselves today. So it's pretty quiet right now. Going ahead, though, as we move forward, it's going to be a little cooler tomorrow, and then we'll take a look at that. But also, Labor Day weekend is coming up. What do they call that, Maya? The unofficial end of summer.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? It's already here. We'll take a look at the forecast for that too, and look at radar and what we expect if we get any more storms and those temperatures too. We'll have that a little later.
All right. Thanks so much, Joe. We'll check in with you after our first commercial break. But right now, let's start off with our top story of the day, and that is the presidential campaign coming back to Michigan once again. So former President Trump was in Detroit yesterday, and today his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, was back in our state, and our very own Allie Baxter was there in Mecosta County and breaks his visit down for us.
Heat wave. Senator J.D. Vance taking the stage in Green Charter Township to talk about Goshen and their proposed EV battery plant before coming here to A&W, talking to people over root beer floats about how he's going to cool inflation.
She's the vice president right now. Stop talking about what you're going to do. Start talking about what you are going to do right now because you're the vice president. And what she has done has been a disaster.
Shielded by bulletproof glass, Vance took the stage early at Majestic Friesians, where just a week ago in the same spot, the Trump campaign supported a No to Goshen protest.
You would think that this is a beautiful, quiet, and peaceful place to live.
But as Brock explains, the Green Charter Township community has turned into a hotspot for political events, with multiple Michigan GOP leaders today promising they won't let the proposed battery plant be built.
Remember the tie-breaking vote that she cast to send inflation through the roof. Remember that vote? That vote also made Chinese companies like Goshen eligible for millions of your taxpayer dollars.
Vance partly blaming Vice President Kamala Harris for the project.
When you make your own stuff with the hands of American workers, the whole country prospers. We know that in Michigan better than anywhere.
Vance focusing on how things have changed under Biden and Harris, seeking to make a point life was better when Trump was in office.
But I know that a lot of Americans prayed for that second chance, and thank God we got it. But a lot of Americans prayed for other things. They prayed for good jobs. They prayed for their towns to have prosperity. They prayed for their parents to overcome the scourge of addiction. And in 2016, a lot of those prayers were answered, my friends, weren't they?
On the issue of inflation, Vance stressing the lack of affordability for everyone, but especially
young people cannot afford to buy a home in their own country. We're turning a generation of 20 and 30-year-olds into permanent debtors.
Vance explains he wasn't always Team Trump and didn't believe in the former president's promises. But
he persuaded me because he did such a good job.
In Mecosta County, Allie Baxter reporting.
And again, Vice President nominee J.D. Vance's visit comes after former President Donald Trump was in Michigan yesterday. He was in Detroit, and he will be back in our state on Thursday. He'll be in Potterville and Eaton County. Meanwhile, the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, is also expected to be in Michigan this week. The Harris campaign says that he'll be in Grand Rapids on Thursday. And speaking of rally and campaign events, let's turn things over to our question of the day, which is, how far would you travel to attend a campaign rally? 64% of voters say 0 to 25 miles, 11% say 25 to 50, 8% say 50 to 75, 6% say 75 to 100, and 11% say over 100 miles. So if you haven't voted on our question of the day yet, you can scan the QR code on your screen right now. And I do know someone who traveled to J.D. Vance's rally today. That was a reporter in her story, our Allie Baxter. So let's bring her into the conversation. Hey, Allie.
Hey, Maya, how are you?
I am good. And looking at the poll, I'm guessing you probably traveled, 75 to 100 miles today?
Yeah, I would say between probably 50 to 75 miles. So I'm in the 8% there. So yeah, I'm in the
Mhm.
8%.
Okay. So kind of walk us through what has your experience been like today?
Oh, well, it's been a hot experience, that's for sure. I don't know if you can see like my new sunburn cooking here. Definitely got some really nice new tan lines out there. Um, there was definitely a lot of people out there regardless, though. I was pretty surprised given the fact that there was this major heat advisory out there. But it seemed like a lot of people were being pretty supportive of, all right, where can we get cold water, cold Gatorade, having to hand that out, just because there was such a risk out there. People lined up pretty early to get in. I know me and our reporter Audrey, we both got in line at 10 a.m. to get in, and he didn't
Mhm.
take the stage till about 1:15. So we were out there for a pretty long time. So everyone was kind of finding little bits of shade, or they had umbrellas. There were these very large tractors out there too that people were actually standing in the shade of those as well, because we were pretty much in the middle of a horse pasture. So there's not a lot of trees out there to find like a little bit of shade in.
And did you guys see any rain down there too?
Oh my goodness, so much rain right at the end though. So thankfully, like camera equipment wise for everyone or people being able to get back to their cars, that was definitely a positive because that rain just came as soon as he was done speaking, as soon as Senator Vance was done speaking. Everyone had made it back to their cars, and after standing in the sweltering heat all day, all of a sudden you had the exact opposite, and you just had this pouring of rain. We had some hail as well. Our reporter Audrey and I, we went to the Big Rapids Public Library to work on our story today, just because things were so intense, like out where we were earlier at the rally site. Just a
Mhm.
lot of hail, a lot of wind. Big Rapids had some flooding as well. So it's been
Gosh.
a very intense day, Maya.
A lot of elements that you
Mhm.
guys had to deal with today when it comes to the weather. But when it comes to JD Vance's actual speech, so he
Mhm.
talked for about 30 minutes. Of course, your story can't be 30 minutes long. It was only about
Right.
2 minutes. So, what are some of the other talking points that you weren't able to mention in your story that he had?
Yeah, I would say, he spoke significantly about the border as well. That was a topic that we weren't able to quite fit in our story today, but he spoke extensively about that. I touched a little bit on the fact that he talked about inflation in the story, but he really went in depth and far as talking about grocery store prices and the things that he's seen, our current administration, the Biden Harris administration, do over the past 4 years, that he feels like and he truly believes that things were better during the Trump era presidency, that we had better policies in place, according to Vance, that made life more livable for people, more affordable as well. Also, I think a cool thing to touch on that we really didn't have time for in the story was he did bring his mom on the campaign trail today, which was pretty cool. He gave her a shout out, said that she's been really supportive. She just buys his kids too many Pokemon trading cards. So he's like, I'm holding you accountable, mom, in front of all these people. But he has a very interesting upbringing, and his mom is a big part of that. So he wanted her on the campaign trail with him. She was also with him today when we stopped at A&W earlier for some root beer floats and to meet some supporters out here as well.
And so you kind of mentioned this in your story, but to just kind of recap, why exactly was he in Mecosta County in Green Charter Township?
Yeah, and this was actually pretty interesting because it's something that even the people in Green Charter Township and the owners of the place we were at today mentioned. Why Green Charter Township, right? But because this is the proposed site of the Goshen EV battery plant, it's really become a huge talking point and a big source of political contention between Democrats and Republicans. So it's become a place where you wouldn't think this little township in Mecosta County would get a lot of attention, especially when it comes to an election. But this has become a really big issue for people as far as which way their vote goes. And that's
Mhm.
why, people keep coming here to have these rallies. But even people, residents in the community that were out there today, said we would have never thought that our peaceful, small, little quiet town would ever host events like this.
And how many people do you think were in attendance?
Oh gosh. I think they were still coming in even when he started speaking. He did start 15 minutes early. So I saw a bunch of people kind of rush to get to their seats as soon as he took the stage. I would say probably at least like 200 as I could see in front of me, and there were people like behind us. There were people standing along the fences as well. So probably at least 200 to 300 people.
And I did notice in your video that, of course, this was an outside rally, and it did look like he was standing behind some sort of, I'm assuming, bulletproof glass.
Yeah, that's exactly what he was standing behind, and it's one of the first times they've used it. We've seen former President Trump use it as well when he's been outside since his assassination attempt. And this is another layer of protection that the Secret Service is adding just to make sure that the candidates are secure.
Sure. Anything else, Allie, that you want to mention about today's event?
I would say probably the coolest part was being able to go along with them to the A&W. That's actually what I'm outside of right now. And the root beer floats looked so good. I did have to go back and get one for myself just to like cool down from the day.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. You know, we get to see candidates a lot of times in this very formal setting. So it's always nice to be able to go to these different places and see them really interact with people, especially in a little more of a low-key format. I mean, everyone seemed really excited that the candidate had come to see them and that they were doing some of these root beer floats. He was taking pictures with people, and that's something we'll see more tonight at 11.
All right, Allie. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and you enjoy that root beer float. You deserved it.
Thanks, Maya.
Bye, Allie. And before we take our first commercial break, we do have an update to a story that we have been working on for a couple weeks now. So if you are a patient at McLaren Health, you very much know about this, and that is McLaren hospitals across Michigan. They are back online following a cyber attack earlier this month. So I'm going to play some video that our reporter Daniel Zivian got of McLaren today. So while the operations are back to normal, McLaren is still investigating the attack. And as I mentioned, our reporter Daniel Zivian, he actually sat down with the CEO and try to learn about how the health system is moving forward. So the CEO is Gar Atchison. He told Danny that the company is working with cybersecurity experts to find out what was accessed. He did say this about sensitive data. I'm going to quote it exactly. He says, quote, "At this time, there's no reason to believe patient or employee records were taken." And he also says that if that were the case, McLaren would make every effort to communicate that, most likely by phone or email, with the patients who had been impacted. He said he couldn't tell us when the full picture of damage would come in, nor could he give a precise end goal for heightening security, but here is what he told us.
McLaren is working with national experts on cybersecurity, continuing to implement recommendations and continuing to beef up the security of the system. But there's no endpoint to this. It's a constant improvement, constant involvement, because the bad guys are evolving all the time as well. So it's a nonstop effort to protect the systems.
And Atchison says this was also a learning experience for employees on the ground, as emergency procedures expected to last hours stretched into weeks. So it will still take weeks for them to input new patient data during the outage into the system. So we are going to take a quick commercial break here on UpNorthLive Unscripted, but we'll come back in just a few moments and we'll have a much more detailed forecast with our chief meteorologist, Joe Charlevoix. So stick with us. Welcome back to Unscripted, everyone. Let's bring back in Joe to the conversation because, Joe, as you mentioned earlier, it was a pretty wild weather day all across northern Michigan. How is tomorrow looking?
Well, tomorrow it's, I don't know, in some cases, maybe a little taste of fall returning.
Oh,
If I told you 60s and showers tomorrow, you might think, yeah, that's like October in some
yeah.
cases. But for some areas, that is going to be the case. We had a cold front pass through Maya, and that did bring in some of those storms that we had. Let's take a look at our radar imagery, and there is a look at this line of storms that passed through. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go back actually 24 hours ago. So I'll kind of just show you what happened as I'm going to get rid of these watches too. They're going to get canceled anyway. So here's a look at last night. And I know during the late news, we were watching this line of storms in Wisconsin. As it got here this morning, right there, kind of fell apart. This is 4 or 5 in the morning. We had some lightning, some thunder, no severe weather with that. That fell apart. And then if you look over here this afternoon, we had some storms go up over in central Wisconsin, right in there. And so that's what rolled in this afternoon right here. And these storms, at least in the Cadillac area, did produce some damaging winds. We did have reports in the Cadillac region of some trees knocked over. In fact, here's a little closer look at that. Highway 115 was closed earlier due to some trees over the road, and then M55 too was closed briefly due to some trees over the roadways. But the good thing in all of this, Maya, was that we were talking about that risk for severe weather, but it wasn't very widespread, which was, we weren't quite sure how this was going to play out yesterday. And there go the storms now. They are exiting down around the Detroit area, back into northern Ohio, they're on Toledo, and then back into Ontario. But as you look back into northern Michigan, it's relatively quiet right now. Here's why we have the showers and storms, a cold front slicing through the area. And you can tell the difference in that. Look at Chicago right now. It's 98 degrees. These are the current temperatures. Well, Sault Ste. Marie is at 78. By the way, the feels like temperature at Chicago, I was just taking a look, is 112.
Oh my gosh.
It feels like there. So that is a hot one. But look what happens here tomorrow. There's this high temperatures. See the green areas there around Rogers City and Sheboygan? We might stay in the 50s tomorrow afternoon. As far as rain is concerned, there go the thunderstorms. Pretty quiet tonight. We could see a shower or storm overnight, but then look at tomorrow. A lot of clouds, and there still will be some showers around. So that's tomorrow around 2 o'clock. Yeah, dodge a little bit of rain here and there. And then even into Thursday morning, maybe a sprinkle or two before that comes to an end. The other thing I wanted to point out, Labor Day weekend, it looks nice. Look at Saturday. Beautiful. We do have another front coming in Sunday. I think a few showers with that, but nothing widespread. And then Labor Day itself looks dry. Highs in the mid-70s, or mid-60s rather, to low 70s. And there's that extended forecast. After tomorrow, with those showers, the next chance for rain, Maya, looks to be on Friday. We'll get some showers and thunderstorms in here then. And then, again, outside of a couple showers on Sunday, it looks pretty weekend, which is coming up. Hard to believe it's already what's that?
I cut you off there for a second. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was rambling on anyway, so it doesn't matter. But, yeah, as you get into Labor Day, looks pretty good.
Okay, thank you so much, Joe. Sorry about that again. We are going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be back in just a few minutes, and we're going to check in with sports director Harrison Beebe to see what he's working on in sports today. Stay with us. Well, high school football season it kicks off in just a couple of days, so I know our sports director Harrison Beebe has been pretty busy for the past couple of weeks, really kind of previewing the seasons for different teams around Northern Michigan and getting ready for the big day.
Yeah, really busy last week, man. Football Monday to Friday, nonstop. Let's just say the week before, and for anybody who watched this show the week before, they knew I was running around like crazy, catching a bunch of the week you were off. We were catching a bunch of camps before I was off. But yeah, we're working on this half-hour special right now. Maya, I'm writing all the scripts and putting together all the video. And let me tell you, it's a tall task. There's going to be a lot that goes into that show, so be sure to tune in. Again, those times will be on TV 7 and 4 on Friday at 12:30 and Saturday at 9:30 a.m. And then they'll be on ABC 29 at Friday at 6:30 and then Sunday morning at 7:30. Although if you miss any of those time slots, I believe it's also going to be posted online for you to view as well, right as we get in the opening part of the season. And today's countdown to kickoff, for those of you catching our newscast tonight, the Glen Lake Lakers, a pretty intriguing team. A fun stat I looked up, the Lakers have only missed the playoffs 3 times since the year 2009, which is just a mind-blowing stat for consistency for that program. That included 2 state finals runs in 2016 and 2019. Jesse Smith is entering his second year with the Laker program, and he really liked what his guys showed in year 1 with him as head coach a year ago, and I think there's a lot of leadership on this team and a lot of skill set. We know Glen Lake is known for having awesome sports teams across the board, no matter what competition you're doing, and I know they expect football to be the case again this year, and which should be a very fun and competitive NMFC Legacy division.
And Harrison, we have a little more than 30 seconds left. Anything else that you want to mention before we have to go?
Let's shout out the Detroit Tigers. Maya, people like me consider them long dead and buried, but let me tell you, they've been playing phenomenal. They may not make the playoffs, but winning 11 of 14 in the last 2 weeks here and sweeping the White Sox, which is pretty easy to do, but still, you'll take the wins where you get them. They're only 6.5 out of a spot for the American League wild card in that final wild card spot. There's 3 teams that get them in each American and National League. So if they keep playing this hot and some of those teams up ahead of them trip up a little bit, it could be very interesting down in those final few weeks of the season, which I know we're all hoping for at the very least. Just make things fun down that stretch, kind of like the Red Wings did in the spring for hockey.
And there's about 30 games left?
Yep, 30 exactly.
All right. So plenty of time to get back in the wild card race. All right. Thanks so much, Harrison. We are going to take a quick break, but we'll be back in just a few minutes. In case you missed it, JD Vance, the nominee for vice president for Donald Trump, was in Mecosta County today. So that prompted the question, how far would you travel to attend a campaign rally? 64% say 0 to 25 miles. That is by far the leading answer. It's bouncing back and forth now. It's 64%. If you haven't voted yet, you can scan the QR code on your screen right now. I will keep that up for a couple minutes after this broadcast ends. But that'll do it for Up North Live Unscripted. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back here tonight on Up North Live News at 11.